when I finally approved the last mix, I broke down in tears. That's
Damn.
how much I put into the Book of Ryan.
So going back to the writing, now, like the verse writing of a structure, the structure when you write a verse, do you have like the opening and closing line in mind before you start the verse, before the verse is done? Is that something that's important? Because you always have, I feel like you always have a good entrance and you have a good closing line. So is it something that you come up before even finishing with being done with the verse?
Not all the time, but there has been times. Yes. Tabernacle was a song where I knew the beginning and the end for sure. Before I wrote a word, I knew the beginning and the end. A lot of times when I write stories, just because of sometimes when I read books and I'm just reading just to be entertained, when it's not like a any sort of informational, educational book, it's just like maybe a Donald Goines hood story. You know, like where these genius guys, they just come up with stories off the top of their heads. Like Nas does it. Like I Gave You Power.
Rewind.
What is that? Ghetto Love Story. Yeah, it's like he just thinks of these stories, fictional stories, just off the top of his head, and it's like you listen to it and it sounds like you're watching a movie. You know what I mean? Like you can see it. You know, and reading those Donald Goines books, that kind of like it inspired me not only to write some fictional stories, but because of Biggie, Nas, it always has to be a twist at the end. It's not right without a twist at the end. So there's been times where I've came up with the twist at the end first, and then figured out how I was going to open it up and obsessed about the way I was going to open it up until I figured it out. And then once I opened it up, writing the rest of the story came pretty simple. It's just the ending and the beginning. You know what I mean? When it's those types of situations, then I'll put more emphasis on that. But if I'm just approaching it like Thou Shalt, we spoke about earlier, when I just approached it like a mixtape, I didn't have anything in mind. I just started rapping.
And yeah, Tabernacle kind of leads to my next question. So songs like that, when it's a personal song, do you like plan it out? Like, okay, first verse, I need to hit those beats. I need to talk about this and talk about that. And then you kind of write around it.
Yeah. Tabernacle, I had to write that one with a lot of structure. I needed to know exactly where I was at all times with that, because I didn't want the song to be too long. I knew I wanted to leave a little bit of space in between verses so I can have some room for narrative. I felt like with that particular song, a lot of people, if they would have tried to do that concept, they probably would have had some singer come sing the hook. Because a lot of artists do that. It's like, oh, this is me showing you that I'm being emotional. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to do that. Like, I really, really wanted to make my point. I wanted you to understand from the horse's mouth exactly what happened. And I didn't want it all to be rap. I wanted to go from rap to conversational. And I knew I had about 3 or 4 verses to get it done. And I knew I couldn't go past 4 verses, you know? Yeah. So I just kind of kept that in mind. The first verse was pretty easy. The last verse was pretty easy. The 2 middle verses, those were a little tough. But I just, and it was really just delegating material, you know, making it balanced.
Yeah.
You know? So it's not so lopsided, you know, like in terms of verse length and the amount of information that I'm putting into each verse. You know, you wouldn't want one verse to be so full of information and then you got another verse full of filler.
Yeah.
You know, so I wanted to wanted to be well into detail on both verses, so you don't notice any sort of weight differential in the song at all. You just in the
That's true.
So all of that I had in mind when I was writing it.
That's dope. It's a dope song, and you're absolutely right. Like, it never feels like there's a verse that doesn't contain information. Like, constantly, like, the story, it keeps adding up and adding up and adding up. And yeah, I mean, that's really like cool to hear. Speaking of songwriting structure, the opening track of the Allegory, Mr. Grace intro. This, I mean, I think another masterpiece. And so how do you go about that? Because it's like more a poem. It gives off the tone, starts the album, right? And there's so much information. For the whole album, did you have to do some research? And like, how do you approach a track like that? Like, what did you have in mind because you knew this is the intro, this needs to be intro. So how do you approach that?
Yeah, but I was inspired by just Derek and the way that he interacts with his kids. And man, the first time I seen those videos, it was like, yo, who the fuck is this dude? You know what I mean? Like, it's like he's so ill, man, because it's like he makes you judge him a certain way. He makes you, like, he forces you to prejudge him. He forces you to prejudge him, and it's almost like he rocks you to sleep. You know, by the time you realize that you're dealing with a brilliant man, it's too late. He's already robbed the bank. You know what I mean? So I just think that's real cool. I think shit like that needs to be put in the forefront more. I think those kinds of conversations between a man and his child needs to be placed in front of the general public more. Not even necessarily that particular narrative, but just narrative between a father and a child. And us as Black men actually finding those teachable moments and not just being there when it's time to discipline or being there when it's time to let them know when they've done something wrong. Yeah. But to actually be there to tell them what to do right, to teach them what to do. So when it's time for them to leave the nest, they fully prepared for the real world, not the America that America preps you for, but the America that you need to be prepped for, and it's going to take guys like Derek, people who think outside of the box and people who aren't afraid to question some of the anecdotal facts and opinions and ideologies that we're like attacked with while we're growing up. Ideologies are weaponized in America and used against us. You know what I mean? So it just takes somebody with some balls, and Derek is just you could tell he's just been here before. He's not operating under the influence of anybody. He's driving his car. And those are the kinds of images of Black people that, we need to show. We need to show, man. We need to show us being smart. We need to show us loving each other. We need to show us loving and protecting our women. We need to show our women loving us and not, like complaining about us and, tearing down Black men all day. Like, we need to add that balance ourselves because it won't exist if we don't, you know what I mean? So that was kind of my thinking when I sampled him. It was just, it was just a family moment that you're not going to normally hear shit like that unless you search high and low on YouTube.
That's true. Like, I didn't know he was really before I heard that, and then I started looking at videos and seeing what he looked exactly like, what he looked like and everything. I'm like, oh, like, I totally understand what you're saying. So you always had that in mind as the opening track of the album?
Yeah, well, it started off with just me taking getting it off of YouTube, taking the vocal and then just making a beat up under it. And after I made the beat up under it, I had it building a little bit. I was thinking to myself, okay, this needs to open up. When it opens up, I said, well, maybe it can go into another song. And somebody was in here. Somebody was in here and was like, nah, you should rap right there. You're not gonna rap right there? I was like, really? I was like, all right. So I what I did was I went and muted the drums and I bounced it down, a big ass space of just music, you know what I mean? And I just started writing. One thing led to another, and that was that.
Man, though. And I want to look at some bars, a lot of great bars, but that part I really like. Knowledge itself is the caveat, and the dollar itself is a demigod. Listen, this is the Iliad. Flip the dollar for wealth until our figures resembles the myriad. We are the inventors, we are the lenders, we are the matriarch. Only thing we didn't make was slavery laws. That rhyming of matriarch and slavery laws, I think people don't realize that to see a word like matriarch, first of all, it's a word that you don't hear often. And to break it down to 3 syllables, and then with slavery laws, to follow that with, it's such a powerful line. Like, just when I first heard that, like, only thing we didn't make was slavery laws, and how you slid this in the rhyme with matriarch, like, it gave me like goosebumps. Like, and I don't have much to say then. That is just dope rhyming. And I want people watching this to just, because people will just hear that and be like, oh yeah, that's a powerful line. But the way it is written, it's even like, it makes it even doper. Like, it's already dope what you said, but the fact that you wrote it that way, I think it just makes it like even more powerful. That's what I always love. Like when something is said nicely, but also like on a technical aspect, there's something very interesting about it. And this whole verse, like when I listen to the rap, the rhymes, I try to figure out where it's gonna go, like what kind of word. But this word, it's like every time, like you go somewhere, like I never knew. Like when I heard matriarch, I'm like, okay, what is he gonna rhyme with matriarch? Like, and yeah, I just think it's just a dope. Like, it keeps you guessing and it goes and it goes and it goes and it goes, man. I think this song is like, it's an amazing opening. It's an amazing opening. It's very, very, very powerful. It's inspiring. Yeah, people should definitely, like, when they listen, like have this song, and there's so many things that people can live by that is said in that song, and I think, and that whole album is going to be remembered for that. That you know, I think it's going to have an impact and it's going to influence a lot of people, man. So it's
Thank you, man. Thank you. I just wanted to just convey self love, and like, you know, like if you're a Black man and you're listening to this, it's like, you're great. You know, like our mothers are the strongest beings that ever existed. We're the matriarchs. You know, like, we invented everything. We create everything cool. The only thing we didn't make is slavery laws. You know what I mean? Like, we got to start thinking more of ourselves, because it's so easy to creatively fall into that place where it's nigga, shoot you in the head. You know, bitches ain't shit, hoes and tricks. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's just, I wanted to set like a tone at the very beginning of the album that just says, I think the world of myself and I think the world of you. You know, like, and it's I kind of wanted the listener to be in that mind frame, in that headspace, you know, before going into Dope Man, you know, because that's kind of like, you know, we all should be raised to feel like kings and queens. But then when we jump off the porch, you know, a lot of times just to measure up to the status quo, we're willing to conform and dumb ourselves down to something like the Dope Man, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we're willing to conform. We're willing to go against our better judgment. And we're willing to just be a shell of our former selves to fit in. You know, and I think that just putting those in that order, you know, it just kind of speaks to the evolution of a Black man. And, you know, not just in America, but man, anywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. And so speaking of sequencing, like how long does it take to sequence that album? Because you have those little skits, like 1 minute and everything. The sequencing is just perfect. And I feel like that's kind of what's missing, I think, in rap right now. Like this album feels like an album. Like it you know, there's skits, their intro, and everything flows together. And one other album I feel in recent years, the past 10 years, to me, is another great album is Kendrick's Good Kid, Mad City, that everything is sequenced in such a great way. So how much time and effort do you put into sequencing? Is it hard?
It varies for different albums, but as much as I need to, you know. So with this album, I don't think I spent as much time sequencing on this one as I did Book of Ryan. But I spent months because a large portion of it is trying to figure out if I could get rid of anything. I'm always trying to cut it down as slim as I can get it. And that's pretty much, you know, where I'm at with it, you know. And then I'll listen to the whole album in its entirety without skipping anything, just to see if I can find any spots that just interrupts something in my mind. You know, if I hear or I feel some sort of interruption, then I'll figure out how to put a Band-Aid on it. You know what I mean? And sometimes it may take a skit. Sometimes it may take, you know, switching some songs around. It's just like a puzzle, you know, like I'll just know when it's right to me, you know. Book of Ryan, I probably took a fucking year, bro. Like, just like,
wow.
I obsessed over that one so much that when I finally approved the last mix, I broke down in tears. That's how much I put into the Book of Ryan. Just sequencing, production, you know, like, and it was real important to me to make sure that I conveyed certain thoughts and told certain stories in a way where they involved other people, but it was a fair depiction, and nobody felt that there was any malice anywhere behind anything. You know, that was very, very important to me. You know, so it just took a long time.
Yo, what's good? I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'll be releasing more clips of my interview with Royce the 5'9", so make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit the bell to get notified for new clips. But in the meantime, if you're new to my channel, I do lyrical breakdown of rap songs, mostly Eminem, but other artists as well, so please check out my other videos. Thanks, it's been real.